Get to the root of trauma. Sponsored by Parent Enhancement Program. I want to say thank you to all our followers out there, all over the world that listen to us podcast. Not only are we different from other podcasters in ways of we are vulnerable, we tell our story, we share our story. It's getting to that messy middle that no one wants to talk about, no one wants to share, no one wants to know. But if we do not get it out, it's like a volcano that will eventually explode and leak all over our little ones. Now, who wants that to happen? We have guest speakers also share their experiences and different techniques that they can help you get to the root of trauma. Again, like, share, follow, and we will help you work it out. Hello, my name is Jules.
And I'm Carolina from Parent Enhancement Program.
Oh my goodness, we have a guest speaker today. But before we get to the topic, what I want you to know is you can always have a coffee break with Carolina and I on www.parentenhancementprogram.com/contact. I'm telling you, sometimes you just need the help of a support group. So that's how you can get in touch with me and Carolina.
Yeah, today we have a very nice speaker. We welcome Shruti. She's going to talk about nurturing strong sibling relationships. So this is very important to the whole mental health and harmony of the family. And as I have 3 kids, I'm so glad you talk about this topic, because it's something that when you have more than a child, it's really important to know. So welcome. We want to hear you.
Thank you so much, Jules and Carolina. And to all the listeners, my name is Shruti and I'm an Indian, and I'm a parent coach based in the Netherlands. I'm a mom to an almost 2-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. And I support parents in their parenting journey, and I help them overcome all kinds of parenting challenges, because guess what? Parenting is hard and full of challenges. So, my company is called Empowered Connections, and on Instagram, my handle is empowered.connections. You can find me there. And my focus is to help parents find the joy in parenting and move from overwhelm and stress to connection and presence. So for me, to share a little bit about my story, I personally believed that things were great till I just had my daughter. And after I had my son, I noticed a lot of behavior shifts in her. She was loving, kind, caring, and she was absolutely delightful with him. However, with us, me and my husband, she would often do the opposite of what we asked her to do, or she would defy and she would not listen to us. And with my lack of sleep and exhaustion, I had an extremely low window of tolerance. And I would find myself snapping at her or yelling at her, or often have these big reactions. And I would go to bed feeling extremely guilty. And honestly, I wanted to do better, but I just didn't know how. And that is when I decided that I needed help. I wanted to understand, why does she behave the way she does? And why do I respond the way I do? I was clueless. And I decided that when I started feeling a disconnection, that I don't want that to happen. And that is when I thought, okay, I need to do some inner work. And with the support of a coach, I did that. And I also then studied to become a coach myself, because I wanted to help families who experience similar feelings, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And of course, as my son is growing up, I feel like there are conflicts erupting between my daughter and my son. And some days it feels like all I do is put out fires. So I want to start off the session by saying that sibling squabbles, competition, comparisons, insecurities, and the never-ending, I had it first, this is mine. These battles are extremely normal and common in every household with siblings. However, we as parents can nurture strong sibling relationships. So, sibling dynamics play a very central role in the family life and also in the personality development of the siblings. And that is why it is important to be mindful about how we want to nurture these relationships and the bonding. So, I want to start with talking about why are sibling conflicts so painfully hard? The answer to that is that we as parents are often neither prepared and nor do we have very reasonable expectations. So when we have a second child, it's often that we have these rosy expectations and we often paint a picture for the elder child that, you're going to have a friend and you're going to have someone to play with. We have this idea and this fantasy that we're going to be one big happy family and this is wonderful for my child. And parents are often expecting that their older child should almost feel delighted that there is another child now. The reality, however, is that when the baby comes in, it is a life altering experience for the older one. They realize that this baby just came along and started taking so much of my parents' time, attention, and love. And their example of safety and security is borrowed away. And because the baby is so small, they can't even really play with the sibling. That was the one thing that the elder one is looking forward to, and it doesn't happen. So it's a lot of disappointment, and the child feels grief, and the child feels jealous, and they feel left out and alone. And all these feelings are extremely normal and valid.
Right.
And there is this universal fact that just after having given birth, no matter how small or big your older child is, you stop seeing them as a baby. They look big and we feel differently about them. And it can be extremely challenging for the elder sibling to receive less physical affection when they see the baby constantly being held and hugged and kissed. It is hard for the elder sibling to watch the parent be so busy with the baby that they don't have enough time for them because there is only so much attention to go around when there is another baby in the mix and there is this sheer exhaustion that the parents experience. So it is hard for them to watch for them to watch us do everything for the baby and expect them to do everything on their own. It's hard for them to understand that we have these higher expectations of them just because they're older. So they often feel pressured because we tell them that you are the older child, you should know better, and you are the role model, so you have to behave well. Right. So that's a lot of pressure that an elder sibling feels. So often with the arrival of siblings, it also happens that we are occupied with our own to-do list, our own feelings, and our navigating life with multiple children and the never-ending chores. So it's like when they need extra love and attention, we are giving them even less because we are so preoccupied. So, what parents often don't expect or realize is that when you're adding another child into the mix, there are going to be big, real feelings. There is going to be abandonment, and when the baby comes along. And when we expect the older child to love the younger child and not have any negative feelings, we are kind of bypassing their very normal feelings like jealousy, possessiveness, and then we call them bad for having these feelings. No, you don't mean that. No, you love your brother. When they tell us that I hate my brother, I want him to go away. So now the children are not just feeling these feelings, they're also alone in their feelings because their feelings are not getting acknowledged. And when we forbid these feelings, it goes underground and reappears as physical aggression at times. There are many siblings, older siblings, who have felt the urge to hurt the newborn. It's not because they're rotten or they're bad, they are simply trying to survive. And it's like human to compete for love and for attention, right? We are all born with that. So I would say that it's not only that we need to make room for these feelings, but also to almost expect these feelings and have empathy towards them. Because when we expect this to happen, we are preparing our child in advance. We are proactive in our parenting. And when we have realistic goals and realistic expectations, we can really stay prepared. So having empathy can really help a child feel understood. Just saying things like when they are sharing their feelings, even the unsavory ones, when they're sharing their feelings that I want him to go away, instead of saying you don't talk about your brother like that or you don't talk about your sister like that, just saying that I know how upsetting it can be. Sometimes you wish it was just you and me, huh? You're not, you're making room for feelings. You're not allowing, behavior that you don't want to allow. So you can just empathize saying that it must be really hard for you having him around all the time. Or I didn't know that you felt that way. I'm beginning to see how rough this is for you. Because it is very comforting for everyone, including children, to have someone who will listen to their negative feelings without judgment. They need to be, there needs to be room for them to be able to air their feelings and wishes about their siblings. And when we allow room for these negative feelings, we are not allowing room for the negative behavior. It is our job to help our children process their anger and grief and teach them how to express it safely without hurting anyone. And I use the word teach. We have to teach them this. And we cannot teach them when we punish them for having these feelings. And it's very important that when we create room for these negative feelings, we are helping make room for positive feelings. So children open up with generosity once we have helped them feel understood and seen and heard and met their needs as well. So the starting point.
Yeah, Ruchi, I would like to stop because there are so many really, really good stuff what you are saying. And as you was talking, I was remember when I have, I have three children. When I have my second and when I have my third, you look like every time you have less and less time and sometimes less patience because, they are adding so many things. And for people maybe who feel triggered by that or they are in the middle of this situation, could be a little bit of a trigger what you're saying. I was adding, I was feeling really activated. I was remember all this stuff when they were little. Now they are bigger. I would like to help people to really think about what you were saying, putting in your child's shoes. Think for a moment with empathy. How could it be for them? I know you are stressed as well. Having a new child, it's very energy, time, and resources demanding, but feel it in your body. What are you feeling in your body? Connect with your body. Don't try to push that feelings away, as Shruti was saying. Make friends with that. Validate your own tiredness and your child feelings. So let's make a pause. You are not alone, as she said. We all have been through these things. And yeah, so let's go back to the topic and keep learning all these good tools and techniques to don't make that as a romantic and realistic situation in our family. Please keep on going.
Yes. So, as I was saying, so the starting point to having nurtured strong relationships and a bond between the siblings is to have appropriate expectations and making room for feelings, and also kind of expecting regressions with the older child. Prepare yourself and your child in advance proactively. Teach them what to say or do when they are wanting your attention and time. I told my daughter, if you see me being busy with the baby and you're wanting to play with me, what would you like me to do? So she says that I will tell you that I need attention. Can you play with me, mommy? And I will tell you when I can play with you. So it's like, because we are proactive, we are already imagining that these scenarios can happen, and if that happens, I'm going to be here for you. So we are letting the child know that it could happen and we are going to be here for you. And also, like, so when my daughter was going through a regression, like, she would sometimes say that I'm also a baby, I would dote on her extra, and I would treat her like a baby. I remember doing a role play with my 4-year-old daughter when I just had my newborn, and I just carried her like a baby, and I have put her on my son's play mat, and I just went goo goo gaga over her, and she was chuckling and laughing, and she absolutely loved it. So another thing I would want to emphasize on is that it's extremely important on being mindful about our language when we are talking about our newborn. Every time we tell our child that be quiet because the baby is sleeping, or I cannot play with you because I'm feeding the baby, the child learns that my mother is not available right now because of the baby. And that kind of builds animosity in our older children. But if we make a small shift in our language, that it is quiet time in our house, so what quiet games can you and I play together? Or that I'm going to play with you in 10 minutes, instead of saying, I'm busy with the baby, I can't play with you. We are moving the focus away from the baby and bringing it back to them. So, reasonable expectations, a lot of prep, and understanding that this transition is extremely hard for my elder child can prevent so many conflicts. And now I would like to move on to the next bit that for the session, which is sibling competition, rivalry, and battles, because this is something I often work with parents about, and this is a common sore point, a pain point. So I want to preface this by saying two things. That, as I said previously, competition is what makes us human. We are all born with a motivation to survive. And second is that no matter how old your elder child is, it's important to remember that all the children that we have are lacking emotional maturity or conflict resolution skills to help them navigate through this competition and insecurity and rivalry. So, siblings often don't need a coach, don't need a judge, sorry. Siblings often don't need a judge or a referee, they need a coach. Instead of thinking and worrying about sibling being friends, it's important to equip them with attitudes and skills that they would need for caring relationships. So I wanted my children to move past the who is right and who is wrong and who had it first. I want them to really learn how to listen to each other and how to respect their differences and how to find ways to resolve those differences. In my work with parents, I have worked with parents who don't want to intervene in the kids' fights. And what this often does is that we tell the child that this is survival of the fittest. Whoever is the strongest one wins. There are no rules because I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to respond to this. So the more powerful child learns that it's okay to bully, to have my needs met. And the less powerful child learns that I cannot do anything to save myself. And there is another scenario where parents go in and, into each fight, but they go in themselves feeling extremely triggered. So they're looking for a bad guy and a victim, and they start taking sides or they start comparing either favorably or unfavorably, like learn from your brother, learn from your sister. And that can often create resentment. We are having this antagonizer and a victim in our head, and we go in screaming and saying things like, give that to your brother now, you are older and you should know better. And this perpetuates more fights. We are giving all the power and energy to the child who's antagonizing by getting them to understand how hurtful this is for the younger child, and we are disempowering the younger child by telling them that I need to fight your battles for you. So the victim learns that I am my mom's favorite child and I can do whatever they want. And the perpetuator feels that I am bad or that my parents don't get me and I have to always give in. So blaming and shaming cannot bring about change. So what is most key in resolving sibling conflicts is that how are we intervening as parents in the sibling fight? It is very important to first tune in to see what are you feeling. Is it sadness that my children are fighting all the time? Is it my failure that I have not raised them well? Or is it I'm just angry because they keep fighting and I can't get anything done and I'm always putting out fires? So your job as a parent is not to judge your children or their fights or compare them. Your job as a parent is to coach them. Your job is to uphold the value and boundaries and restore safety. So, most parenting situations are not emergencies, even if they feel like one. So, when there is a sibling conflict happening, the ideal would be that the parent goes in, separates the two children, and listens to both of them objectively without judgment. I am here now. I heard some really loud voices. You both are pretty angry, and we are validating, we are empathizing, we are holding them apart.